How's it going, everybody? This is the Roaming Prepper channel. I'm your host, Pete. If you're one of my new subscribers, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to try and keep this one quick because there's a lot going on and I don't know all the information. By now, pretty much everyone has seen the floods in the hill country. You saw my short video of the flooding in West Texas, and a lot of folks have asked me, well, how the hell did that happen? So this was one of those perfect storm, no pun intended, kind of situations. What happened, the storm formed out west, right? And it was going the way storms normally do in the US, right? They go from west to east for the most part. And I'm trying to think, I've had so much going on today between friends and work. So anyway, storm formed outside of El Paso and then moved into what's called the Permian Basin. So if you look at Texas, right, you have like Louisiana's, if you're looking at the map, Louisiana's to your right to the east, New Mexico's to the west. You keep going west, you hit Arizona and California. So it's closer to the west, but not all the way to that little tip, which would be El Paso. It's that flat area in between Dallas and El Paso. Between Van Horn and Big Spring and Lubbock and Fort Stockton, so it's a pretty big area. That storm formed and then it stalled and it just sat on us for about 4 days and it caused localized flooding. Now, to my knowledge, other than some car accidents and a couple of cases of people driving into flooding waters and then going into like a drainage ditch or a bayou and drowning, there were very few casualties up here. We have so many work sites, solar power, linemen, electric lines, oil and gas. We've got a lot of trucking, some manufacturing out here. Everyone's shut down because you can't run a crane and that stuff. You can't, you can't function right. So everyone kind of was shutting down or was modifying their workflows. A lot of people just stayed home. So that really helped. The problem is that storm was supposed to break up. Now, it dropped about 8 to 10 inches on us. Our water starts then flowing to the southeast, so toward the Gulf of Mexico from that western part of Texas. That goes right across the hill country, including areas between Austin and Waco, San Antonio, that whole little area there, which is known as the hill country. The hill country geologically was formed by basically different tectonic plates meeting at that point. So you have the plateaus to the west, which is where I now am, and then you have the river deltas to the east, which is where Houston and Corpus Christi and all the beaches are, and in between are the hills and all these rivers and whatnot. So that storm finally, after 4 days, moved and decided to sit over the hill country, and it was dropping a bunch of rain there. In the meantime, the 10 or whatever 8 to 10 inches of rain it dropped on us over 5-6 days, 4 or 5 days I should say, was moving about 20 miles an hour, and it's about 400 miles between us and the hill country. So you do the math. It take about 20 hours for that water to make it to the same spot, the hill country. And that's where the big problems lie, is they already knew they were going to get rained on. They already had a saturation going on, right? The ground was wet, the reservoirs, the lakes, rivers were already getting full. And here comes the 10 inches of water we just got, because ours drained away really fast because our rock is hard, and it went down that way too, and they got hit by that at the same time. And when those two, the flood waters from us, hit their rainwater, which was still coming down, that's how you get those kind of floods. Now, apparently there were alerts sent out, multiple alerts, that went to phones in the area. The local folks, for the most part, know how their area floods. And I talked about it in my book, Defensive Preparedness. The geography of where you live is super important. And this is a classic example of that. Because if you know, wow, if it rains out west, 2 days later, we're going to get the water here, you're going to plan like that. The problem was, of all the weeks it happened, was 4th of July week. So we had people from Dallas, we had people from Oklahoma. That area north of Austin is known around the country as a summer vacation spot. You go tubing down the Rio. Look this stuff up if you don't believe me. Tubing down the Guadalupe, tubing down the Frio, swimming in the Frio River. all these rivers and tributaries are very popular. It's really green, it's really pretty, lots of small towns, cafes, restaurants, shopping, local stuff. We had tens of thousands of people who are not normally from that area converge on that area specifically for the 4th of July. Now think about it, on top of everything, when the floodwaters hit, these alerts were going out on the phone, but they're very generic, right? It's Kerr County, it's, you know, this county and that county, but it doesn't say specifically, hey, if you're in this park, your ass is going to drown. So a lot of people looked at it and said, oh, that's the next county over. They didn't think about the area they were in. So you not only had the local people, you had all these camps for kids, then you had tens of thousands of just weekenders coming in for the long weekend. And that just combined to make an absolute mess, because you had a lot of people who didn't know the area and didn't know where to go in the event of an emergency. And again, this is why I often say in my videos, you got to understand where you're visiting. You're going to Vegas, know where the emergency stuff is in Vegas, how to get out of Vegas. You're going to the hill country, same thing. You need to understand where the high ground is. Now, what's funny, well, it's not funny, it's good, but it's ironic, if you will, is Garner State Park, which is west of San Antonio, they got flooded. But the rangers had been watching, and the camp managers told everyone, hey, we got to get to high ground. One of the dams actually failed, by the way, which is not on the news. A small dam failed and made things so much more difficult for everyone. All the campers went up on the mountain, because that's what Garner State Park is known for, is hiking on these small mountains. So people just went up the mountain, and they brought their dogs, their kids, their food, everything, and they basically camped out on the mountainside and watched the river basically sweep away all their equipment, which was not good, but it didn't sweep away the people. They were proactive. The rangers got out there. Now, for the record, there were 5 different camps for kids all along the river at the same time, and only one lost a bunch of kids. The other camps were emptied out. There was one camp that had over 80 girls. It was a Girl Scout camp out. And the counselors, they would keep a counselor awake all night. Like they do night shifts, kind of like the military. When she saw the alert, she woke up the other counselors. They started talking about it. When they looked at the river and saw it was just starting to creep up, they was like, you know what? We're going to break camp. So they broke the girls. Everyone grabbed their crap, they got them in the trucks, and they were gone. Another group was a bunch of young boys. He told everyone, grab your packs, grab your gear, we're going up the mountains. So they couldn't get out, they couldn't make it to their trucks. But these were teenage boys, they had enough time to go up the mountain, and they were camped out on high ground. So of the 5 camps or 6 camps, only that Camp Mystic lost those little girls. They just didn't react in time. I couldn't speak to why. Alerts apparently went out, but again, they're very generic, and you run the risk, if you put too many alerts out, people get confused and they don't do anything. So it was a combination of a stalled storm that wasn't supposed to go that way, plus our floodwater went their way, and they got hit with both at the same time. And you add to that 20, 30, 40,000 people who don't know the area, they don't know where to go or how to react. It's a recipe for disaster. It's really heartbreaking. They brought so many assets, like basically Texas initiated the hurricane response plan, but for the hill country, and helicopters, even the Coast Guard. I mean, everybody was there. But again, now the river's risen, people are gone, roads are gone, and now what? Now they're battling all of that, trying to find people. I do want to announce the positive news. They found a bunch of girls in a tree about 25 feet above the ground. One of the cops found them. The problem was they couldn't get the fire truck in because it was so muddy. They couldn't get to the kids. So what they did, a firefighter and a cop, from what I'm understanding, climbed the tree, and the Coast Guard and the Army sent helicopters and would lower the basket, and these guys were picking up these little girls, putting them in the basket, tying them in, and sending her up. And then the helicopter would move over, the other helicopter would come and drop their basket, and they'd put a baby in there, tie them up, send them up. Then that helicopter would move, and they basically, the 2 choppers were doing this, and they picked up a group of girls. They were okay. They were a little dinged up, dehydrated, certainly traumatized, but a glimmer of good news. For those of you who did reach out on the side, yes, we have not heard anything about my friend from the professional society. Her husband, I think her daughter and the daughter's husband, or the cousins, and a teenager have not been accounted for yet. Our whole group up here in West Texas we've been texting back and forth. They've tried the phones, tried the emails, no response. And we're not the only ones. There's dozens of people out there missing, friends, family, loved ones, kids, dogs, the whole 9 yards. This is why it's so important to do your homework, even on a vacation, and understand, you know, whether it's flooding in the hill country or tsunami in Thailand on the beach, not knowing the risks in the area you're going to can have catastrophic results. Most of the people who are fatalities, some were local, but the vast majority, it sounds as of today, were people from out of town who just went there for vacation, to hang out on a river and drink beer. And the fact that it all happened at 3 a.m. to between 2 and 4 a.m., really 3 a.m., there were probably people who were drunk, passed out, tired, kids were tired. By the time you get your bearings, even if you weren't hungover, you get your bearings at 3 a.m. in a strange place and there's water coming in your RV or your tent, it's already too late. So I'll keep you guys posted if I hear anything for all these various folks. We did lose a cop and his wife from town as well. Young couples. I don't, it's just, you know, it's sad. And the scary thing is my wife and I were thinking, oh, should we go to the hill country, to the river? And we've decided a long time ago not to drive on the 4th of July, because if we can't get where we're going by the 4th, we're just not going to go. So we decided to barbecue at the house, and that probably was a good thing. But it's tragic and it's sad. If I hear any new news or any, more importantly, investigations as to what happened, I'll share with you guys, because these are very sad times, but they're also important lessons the rest of us can take away as far as how we should plan our trips. Even on a vacation, shit can happen, and we need to be alert to these situations. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. God bless, Godspeed. I will see you all later this week. And plan your trips. Please plan your trips. Have contingencies. You don't have to be paranoid, but be smart. I'll see you all later.